Well, hello and welcome to another in our series of Choice Words videos where we get to speak to the great and the good of UK fund research and UK fund selection. I'm Julian Marr, I'm Editorial Director of Wealthwise Media, and today I am delighted to be talking to David Coombs, who's Head of Multi-Asset Investments at Rathbones Asset Management. Hello David, good to see you.
Hello, good to see you too.
Thanks mate. Jump straight into my first question.
Go for it.
Oh, you're ready, you're pumped, aren't you? Bring it, go on, Ginge, go ask me a question. What do you got? Well, it was all about the investment outlook. What excites you? What gives you pause for thought?
Well, I mean, being multi-asset and being Welsh, I tend to go pause for thought first. The glass is half empty. There's a lot of stuff out there, right, of course, whether it's tariffs, whether it's what's going on in terms of the oil price. In the UK, we've got our own issues to worry about, the gilt market and black holes. There's a lot to be worried about, really, and I think also we're seeing big durations in markets. Yes, markets are up, there's big rotations going on, and you've got to be across all of these different moving parts. And I think what's exciting me, or what's the good coming out of it, is basically, unlike last year, which was so concentrated, Mag 7, we were all bored, right, with Mag 7, no more than me, because I didn't have enough of it. But this year, you've seen a much more return to fundamentals, markets being a little bit more broad in terms of where you're seeing the opportunities and they're playing out. And so actually, for me personally, and it's all about me, right? This is a better market environment because you're starting to see the risk that you take being rewarded, whereas last year, frankly, it was just momentum, and it was very difficult to add any value.
Do we have an upbeat there? But yeah, that felt very.
Well, the upbeat is that it's a broader market.
Yeah,
You're getting more volatility. That creates opportunities. I mean, it's not it's a massive bullish outlook. What I'm saying is, earnings season guidance around tariffs. There's lots of uncertainty, and that does create opportunities to outperform. And I think that's the exciting bit. Excellent. I know clients don't like volatility, but active managers do quite like it as long as it doesn't go on too long.
No, that makes sense. And by the way, it is all about you, at least for the next 10,
Fine.
15, 20 minutes or so, because no one's tuning in to watch me on this, I guarantee it. Let's zoom in from the macro to the micro, as it were. What do you look for in an individual investment, and what do you count as red flag?
So again, it's all about the risk, right? So whether it's whether I'm looking at Brazil at the moment, for example, or whether I'm looking at Romania, or looking at an individual company, it's all about what is the risk of it going wrong, which I know sounds slightly negative, but ultimately when you're running kind of multi-asset funds, you have to, it's as much about what you avoid as what you invest in, right? So ultimately, am I being paid for the risk? Which may seem simple, but I think investing is quite simple actually. So if I can buy a Romanian government bond in euros that's yielding 6%, hedged back to sterling yields 8%, that's inflation plus 4 or 5, that's an equity type return for a government bond on a euro convergence story. I use that as an example to say, well, actually, it's a relatively liquid bond market in Romania. It's dominated in euros. For a sterling investor, that's very attractive. I'm getting an equity type return from a bond. So that's how I think about every investment from bottom up. Whether it's a bond, equity, which is why I have almost nothing in corporate bonds, because I think the liquidity risk, you're not being rewarded. I'd rather in sovereign bonds where you can really find some value. And so everything comes back to, am I being paid for the risk?
As they talk in terms of sort of alternative investments, and you sort of talk about Romanian high yield or whatever, but do you look beyond traditional investments, doing what you do, and into what areas?
Yeah, I mean, I guess it depends on your definition. Sure. Traditional, obviously, but you know, when we look at alternatives, we really use quant type strategies or arbitrage type strategies rather than traditional alternatives, I suppose. We don't look to commercial property particularly, and infrastructure we don't even think of as alternative. So we might look at commodities, but we'll also look at using derivatives to alter the risk return of those commodities, because again, they can provide volatility. Sometimes they can be highly correlated to risk on. So it's taking derivatives to generate some defined non-correlated returns to equities and bonds. It's quite a complex area. But even in that area, it's no different in a sense. Is what's the payoff? What's the downside risk? How does that correlate with the rest of the risk you're taking in the portfolio? And does it make any sense? If it doesn't, just leave it alone. Don't bother. You know, don't underweight. Don't go into areas where you don't need to go. If it doesn't reduce your risk, doesn't enhance your return, go zero. That's kind of our framework, really.
Thank you. Let's move on to client communications. I know you're a great communicator, but you'll think I'm having a go at you being Welsh there. Let's move on to a bit euphemistic. Whatever it is you've written for me in the past, you write well. But what is your approach to client communications, and how do you ensure that clients stay along for the full journey so they don't miss out, as so many people do?
So all the communications we do, whether it's the podcast that we run or right down to a quarterly commentary, everything is complied down to the retail. And we call it, and please don't take offence at this, but we call it dinner party chat. Because ultimately, you want to reassure your investors, because again, multi-asset, you tend to get a bigger share of the client's wallet. You're not just 5% of a portfolio, you're typically a third, a half, or maybe all of their assets. So they want to be reassured. And what reassures them is simple, plain English and things they can understand and they can talk about with their friends. And if you can also show some thought leadership or some interesting ideas, whether it's AI at the moment, for example, again, in a language, don't get down the rabbit hole of the jargon, that they can then talk to their friends about, well, actually, not only are your clients engaged with you and you become a human being and a real person rather than some fund manager in a tower somewhere, but you never know, they might encourage their clients to buy my funds as well, and that wouldn't be a bad thing.
No, fair enough. We'll change choice words to now become dinner party chat, because that's very much firmly where we are in these things. Just occurred to me about what your path to investment was, and known you long enough, I actually don't know what it was. But anyway, what was your path to investment? And if you hadn't taken that path, what do you think you'd be doing now?
Well, I mean, danger here of being sort of Keir Starmer and with his father being a toolmaker territory, because my team take the mickey out
Minions.
of me. Yes, people who report to me. They take the mickey out of me all the time. There's no respect, in the sense that they've heard this story a million times, so apologies. But basically, I left school before finishing my A-levels, went to work in a bank, wasn't very good at it because I was really bored at opening and closing bank accounts, and so they put me in the investment department to collect dividends, and so I was working investment admin and begged to get a job as an investment manager on the private client side. Some idiot gave me that job. I did it for quite a while, and then when I got to 40, decided I wanted to move into asset management. Again, somebody took a risk on me. At the age of 40, I started running funds. So very late into the asset management world. And I think it was an advantage. Others may think differently, but I think coming to it slightly more, not mature, but slightly older and more circumspect probably hasn't been a bad thing.
Real world experience.
Yeah, but also not believing in your own kind of, BS, I guess. I can't think of a better way of putting it. But I've seen a lot of young fund managers have a very good 1 or 2 years and then disappear because maybe think it's easy. And this job is never easy. And I know Will Small is violin by fund manager, right? But it isn't easy. And frankly, just having a long tenure as a fund manager is, you need experience and you need to have worn a bit of pain over that time. And
aside from me, lost the world of high street banking, what would you be doing otherwise?
Well, that's a very good question. I mean, I guess when I was at school, my careers teachers basically pushed me towards acting, and some would say that's what I did. There
you go. That's very philosophical. We sort of touched a little bit on sort of investment stakes of other people. Here today, gone tomorrow type fund managers. They know who they are. But what was your biggest investment stake, or the biggest mistake you're prepared to admit to, and what did you learn from it?
Yeah, I mean, I think the first I knew this question would come up because obviously it comes up quite a lot, and you think of smart ways of making you look brilliant. Look, I've made a lot of mistakes, right? And I think the fact is, to be a good fund manager, you have to be prepared to make mistakes. The first thing I say to the young people joining my team, I need you to make mistakes. Okay, in a reasoned way.
Don't go out of your way to
it's not a badge of honour, but nevertheless, for a risk, we are risk takers. Yeah. Therefore, you have to be able to take risks. You have to make decisions. So there were lots of mistakes. I made mistakes in '99. I think, because in '99. I could see all the tech stocks were going to huge valuations. Many of those weren't even profitable, and I was underweight and underperforming, and I panicked. And in the second half of '99, I started to buy some of those stocks, and of course, what happened in 2000 to 2002. and I didn't stick with my conviction. And whether it's imposter syndrome or whether it's lack of confidence when the market's going against you, that was a big mistake, to just follow the crowd and follow the herd. And I think, and we're all in danger of doing that all the time. I mean, we all try and look confident on videos like this because people want to, but ultimately the markets can humiliate you quite regularly. And it's how you deal with that and understand that that's really key.
Yes, it's tough to fight against it, isn't it? I do remember it back then, but it just...
It is. I mean, was it Tony Dye who lost his job famously, right, during the late 90s? And as a young manager at the time, I was admittedly in the private client side rather than asset management. It was very hard. I mean, a bit like betting against Mag 7 last year. I could see a lot of parallels last year with 99, actually.
But you held off, because you mentioned this earlier. The thing is, you felt like you didn't have enough, but actually you don't regret.
No, I mean, this time I stuck to the process, and don't get me wrong, it meant my performance was pretty ordinary last year, but then DeepSeek happened in February, yes, it was February this year, and all of a sudden, you kind of have that relief that I wasn't as stupid as I suddenly thought I might be, and that's the point. The markets can make you look stupid for quite long periods, and there is that danger that you just capitulate, and I think you are meant to try and learn from mistakes. I got there in the end, right, so I turned it into a positive, but it is genuinely true, is that you've got to realise you can't know it all the time, and you've got to become comfortable with that.
I'm moving now on to what is definitely everyone's favourite question in this series. Outside of work, what's the strangest thing you've ever seen or done?
I mean, I've done lots of strange things doing this job, let alone outside of work. I guess the strangest thing I've seen in recently, and obviously being of a senior age, I'm trawling back, but more recently I was in Peru last year and saw the mummy of a 14-year-old girl that was sacrificed during the Incas. And it was actually on a Channel 5 video with, is it Dan Snow recently? If you want to check it out, or I'm sure it's on YouTube or TikTok or whatever your social media choice is.
Oh yeah, you know me so well. Yeah, I was straight onto TikTok after this.
Go away, scrolling away straight away. Anyway, one is a shocking story of these young girls who were schooled, in fact, to be human sacrifice to the Incas. But this mummy is so well preserved, and it's in this tiny little museum with, I think there were 3 other people in there when I was there, and it's just unbelievable and shocking and rather strange to think you're looking at the body of a young girl who was sacrificed 500 or so, 600 years ago. So that was the strangest thing I've seen in the last 5 to 10 years, I would say.
Well, I was going to say that took a very dark turn, but actually, but equally, I mean, I'm the one who asked the question.
And Welsh, right? What did you expect?
You gave the answer. No, it's absolutely no. That's definitely up there. Yes, I asked these questions for a reason. I'm still not quite sure what the reason is, but that definitely qualifies as an answer. Back to the safety of the Her Majesty or His Majesty's financial services industry. What do you see as the best and worst case scenarios for the future of wealth in this country? Wealth management, let's say.
In wealth management, yeah. I mean, I think I would say this, I guess, wouldn't I? But I do worry about the move to passive, and this is not. I'm not knocking passive investing. I think it has a role to play, but I do worry that this rush to passive may be driven by cost, sometimes performance as well. To be fair, I think cost is a big player. I do worry about the lack of thought about where people are investing their capital. We talked about Mag 7 and momentum. Okay, you're not going to lose your shirt probably in the Mag 7, he said, hopefully. But I do think that passive investing, which whatever those firms would say, I don't believe are engaging with those companies. I don't think it's good for capitalism, where capital is allocated purely based on the size of a company in an index. I think just philosophically, and this has got quite deep, this conversation, but I think philosophically that slightly worries me, and it worries me about the momentum that drives ultimately everyone into the same place, which isn't great, and the big get bigger so the bubbles get bigger. I also worry about, there's a lot I worry about, I also worry about the transition to crypto, and that again concerns me, that the wrong people will be in the wrong investments, and I get asked about crypto in every meeting I do. I personally don't invest in crypto. I don't fully understand where it goes, and therefore I would never invest in something I don't understand. And yet I think there's lots of stories of how much people have made, money they've made. Go back to dinner party chat actually, and I think that worries me that we are rushing into something that we don't fully understand.
I was going to say, was there a glass half full at the end of that one?
Well, I guess the good news is, I think for the wealth manager, is that increasingly, I think you're seeing ever greater levels of professionalism, both in advice and also in investment management. I think driven by a much more competitive marketplace. I think clients are demanding better outcomes. There's more transparency on price and outcomes. I do think the good will get better and the mediocre will disappear. So I think ultimately so the good thing that passive is doing is going to drive out the mediocre. And then I think AI will also help in terms of improving client outcomes, as long as it's adopted in the right way. And that'll be a challenge.
Last couple of questions now. Is there any advice you wish you'd been given by your future self coming back in a time machine on your first day at work? Not in the bank, but in perhaps.
I think I'm my 41st year now, which it looks impossible, I know. But I think my advice would be, and I didn't always follow it, by the way, but my younger self, and some would argue I probably don't do it now, but I think you've got to stick to your convictions, stick to what you're best at, but really recognise what you're not good at, because that's an even bigger skill actually, and to work on those. But ultimately, remember, you're never going to know it, and have that humility to be able to change your mind and lose the arrogance. And that's not easy as a fund manager when people butter you up a lot.
Last question then. We call this choice words because of the choices you make in your professional capacity, but a couple of personal recommendations now. We usually look for a book, doesn't have to be investment, but it can be, and a free hit.
Okay, the thing with asking about books, people want to be cerebral, right? And so often,
don't have to be.
If I'm being honest, I'm usually, the last thing I want to do is read something heavy when I'm doing the job that I do. So I'd say the best book is a fiction book, or it's actually a trilogy that I've read in the last 5 years or so, and that's Don Winslows' Mexican Cartel trilogy.
Right.
So definitely have a look at that over the summer. Maybe a little bit gory in places, so just a trigger warning. And I guess the free hit is nothing particularly spectacular. I love music, and the best album I've heard for quite some time of a group or band I've never really liked, and that is Pulp's new album.
Okay.
Definitely give that a listen. It's quite different to their usual stuff, and it's mellow, and it's class.
Different class.
Different class.
There you go. Good answers, that one. I've not heard of Mexican. I'm not looking for intellectual stuff on this one. I don't mind. Philosophy and money on one side, or joggle, green back. I would go slow horses. It's the same thing. But
the books are even better than as always. Right?
As always, yeah. So the Mexican cartels are to be digging that out. So yeah, great, and Pulp as well. I keep meaning to buy it, or I don't have to buy it anymore, do I?
Download it,
stream it. Come on, Grandad.
Come on,
get a grip.
Get with the kids.
Yeah, I know. I just feel, but they are. Those are good ones. I shall look them both up, so that means they are definitely great choices. David, thank you so much for your time today.
Not at all, enjoyed it, thank you.
And thank you very much for watching. Please do look out for further Choice Words episodes as and when they are published.